industry. Now, today, I have a guest who has made the leap from being a senior leader and executive within the data center industry with some of the most recognizable and largest organizations on the globe, to now starting a new business and very much taking the entrepreneurial route. And that's always a route that I hugely admire. So what I want to delve into today is just what that journey looked like, where the plan hatched, and how he made that a reality as he enters year 2 of his new venture. So without further ado, I wanted to give a very warm welcome to Ernest Popescu, CEO and founder of Metrobloks. Ernest, welcome to the Data Center Exchange.
Yeah, Del, thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, we always start in the same kind of place, really, just up until you got into the data center industry or the digital infrastructure world. I'm always keen to understand, and the listeners to understand, your background and up to the point where you got into the industry.
Yeah, my background was in mechanical engineering. After school and the military service, I started working for a small boutique consulting firm that implemented ERP systems for the tier 2 automotive manufacturers. Really interesting. It sort of, addressed my sort of technical curiosity. I loved cars, like all boys do, I'm sure, or did at least back when I was growing up. And I think starting out in the auto industry was really pivotal. Exposed me to lean sort of manufacturing principles. And after having worked in the auto industry for a few years, I started working in the aerospace industry. Very similar, supply chain, logistics, operational, manufacturing, sort of transformative value add process, and which I really enjoyed. Had a lot of fun doing it, and I think my background in supply chain and operations is what ultimately attracted or made me attractive to Amazon.com, which is how I got recruited and moved from Montreal, Canada to Seattle about 11 or 12 years ago. Worked for Amazon.com for about 2.5 years. Did some really cool stuff at the beginning. All of the non-conforming ASINs or SKUs that needed to be received, stored, shipped to customers. All of the non-sortable standard ASINs is what I worked on. We called them Frankenstein fulfillment centers at the time. It was really cool, very innovative. And then as Amazon grew, there was less and less room. Amazon.com grew and then became more mature and stable. There was less and less room for, sort of the experimental, the wild, innovative ideas. It really became about variable cost per unit improvements. And you're talking about basis points, off pennies, like 1/1000th of a penny at Amazon's transactional volume translated to tens of millions of dollars of savings. But it was far from interesting. So I figured it was a great opportunity to join a different branch, a different sort of entity within the Amazon family, and that was AWS. I knew little to nothing about data centers. I had some friends who I had worked with who had made the leap. One of them, being Scott Cousins, who was heading up the AWS data center capacity planning team. And he had hired some folks from teams that I'd worked on onto his team, which was one of the things I loved about Amazon's culture is the belief existed that, smart people will figure things out. You didn't necessarily need to have a background and experience, but that if you sort of had the intellectual curiosity to learn, you'd be able to apply some of the foundational principles that you had picked up in your journey to a new product. So that's sort of what allowed me to get into the data center development business, I want to say probably about 9-10 years ago now.
Yeah, it's an important principle. I still think is often overlooked, to be honest with you, that ability to embrace people from outside of the industry. And slightly off topic, but I think the industry is definitely going to need to embrace that and have a bit of a culture shift in certain areas, that people who are smart, who can apply themselves, can add huge amount of value to the industry. And as it grows at an unprecedented rate, we're definitely going to need a bit of that for sure. So great to hear you were very much welcomed from outside of the industry. And then since that move, Ernest, how talk to us a bit about what you've been doing in the industry itself.
Yeah. I think my time at AWS, particularly planning global data center capacity, was formative. Sort of exposed me to, um, you know, the industry from a first principles perspective, and really gave me a broad understanding in terms of the signal that triggered demand, how demand was met, um, what the lead time offset was. Data center development is such a intricate sort of team sport, requires the convergence of so many services towards the same principle. It's really, and it's fascinating because there's a real estate component to it, there's a commercial negotiation component to it, there's a technical engineering design component to it. Again, I've worked in the aerospace, automotive industry, and this is probably the sort of sector, the industry sector that I've stayed in the longest, because it's captivated my attention, which is sometimes fleeting. And I think it's sort of kept me engaged and learning and curious, and it's really a dynamic space. So it's been a lot of fun. And just to sort of tie a bow around the question, after planning capacity for about a year and a half, I started managing the teams that I was triggering. So I started contracting with co-location providers to meet AWS's North American supply needs. I then started doing that for core and edge, and I then started managing the real estate development team. So essentially all the greenfield land acquisitions, permit, entitlements, power, and including the build to suit. So contracting with developers for warm shells. I did that for about 3 years with AWS, 4 years, managed a team of 50 exceptional individuals who all have gone on to do a lot of great things, and probably enabled, I want to say between 10 and 15 gigawatts of data center infrastructure capacity, which at the time was about 75% of AWS's global capacity, which in today's numbers, pales just because of how explosive the growth in the industry has been. After AWS, I left, worked for Facebook. And then after Facebook, I wanted to experience the industry from a different perspective. I had been buying and developing capacity for my employers. I wanted to build and sell capacity, and I wanted to, again, I thought it would well round my experience. And I went to work for Iron Mountain for a little less than 2 years, and about a year ago, I left and formed Metrobloks. And yeah, almost 13, 14 months later, here we are. Yeah.
So tell us about Metrobloks, Ernest. Tell us about Metrobloks.
Yeah, Metrobloks is sort of my brainchild. It's frankly the aspect of the industry that I thought was most interesting. So I'd worked for AWS and Facebook, and they tend to deploy in large rural campuses for the most part, obviously there's some specificity in that model that's shifted with the advent of AI, ML zones, but for the most part, they tend to expand in existing availability regions, in large rural areas. It's somewhat formulaic. It's a fairly tried and tested process, and it's also very commoditized. But the edge is sort of innovative. It's bleeding edge. Maybe that's why it's called the edge. I'm not exactly sure, but it involves connectivity, and and there's some innovation, and there's an opportunity to add value in urban metro markets where a few things happen. One is there's an underserved customer segment. Two, the sort of edge, local zone, local region ecosystem tends to be very altruistic. It's sort of where the internet comes together, and different content providers peer and transit and exchange with each other's. So that's sort of what we're building. It's what I found most interesting when I was working for AWS, Facebook, and Iron Mountain. I think there's a competitive advantage because there are few providers in the space, because most of the industry, most of the pack is sort of chasing that single tenant wholesale built to suit signal. So that's what Metrobloks is. It's the idea that we want to sort of democratize data center infrastructure capacity. We want to bring compute, storage, inference to large, densely populated urban metro markets in the U.S. and globally, for that matter. So that's sort of what we've been working on for the last 12, 13 months. And interestingly enough, as the industry has evolved, when I was meeting with potential investors almost a year ago now, or over a year ago, this notion was completely foreign and it didn't resonate with them. And over the last few months, it's interesting how it's shifted, and everyone's going, yeah, inference makes sense, bringing, compute, GPU, future ready capacity in this underserved, in these underserved markets, and in this sort of customer segment is starting to percolate through the financial institution community. And the idea has been received a lot more favorably recently. So it's been really encouraging. I think we're I think we were on something early, maybe a little too early, and I think the industry has certainly come around these days. So it's been really cool, validating.
Yeah, it sounds great, and I'm interested to hear about what's in store the next 12 months a little later. I'm keen to delve into a little bit about, I guess, the entrepreneurial spirit, because, to be honest, there's the industry is providing lots of opportunities to people inside and outside the industry at the moment. But you've decided to not play the safe card and go out and do something for yourself. What inspired you to do that? And also, how long has the entrepreneurial spirit been there? Is it something that you've always had, or is that something that developed over time?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. I was never conformist. I always struggled to conform. You look at my career trajectory, it is not traditional. The people tend to stick in a particular industry for a very long time with the same employer, even though there are, there's less and less loyalty these days, and works both ways. But my if you were to spaghetti diagram my career path, it would be a hot mess, right? So I think my entrepreneurial spirit was always there. I think a few things happened. I've got 4 children. I wanted, and then the other thing that's interesting is I'm not considering myself a necessarily smart person, but I think smart people usually find reasons not to do things, not to take risks, not to take chances, and then most are fortunate that they have a solid, stable, well-paying job. So you sort of get lulled into a slumber. You're sort of in this fog where your job keeps you busy enough so you don't necessarily look outside of the job. You're paid well, so you're comfortable. And I think I was starting to fall more deeply asleep, and it's why I left AWS. Foolishly, looking back, I thought I had solved AWS's capacity needs for the next 10 years, right? Which is hindsight, a very stupid thought. But I wanted to get out of my comfort zone. I wanted to experience the industry from a different perspective. And then, I was fortunate enough. I've had some personal success in my career. I talked to my wife, who was incredibly supportive. And the conclusion was, if I don't do it now, I never will, and I'll live with this regret. And if nothing else, I'm a person who sort of lives life somewhat unapologetically, and I don't want to live with regret. So the timing was right. My personal situation accorded me the opportunity, and that's kind of how we got started. But it's always been an itch. It's always been a bug. I like to be brutally honest and transparent. It's an acquired taste. Some people like it. Some people like it from time to time in small doses. But I think it's important, certainly important for me to be genuine and authentic. And like I said, I, it worked well with Amazon, the Amazon of old.
There's a couple of things there you mentioned. One was the fear that a lot of people experience, and I think probably switches people off more than it pushes them forward. How real was that fear for you back in, sort of what, late 23, early 24, when you were going through making the leap?
Yeah, I think the fear is real, right? I mean, what's it? It's fight, flight, surrender, right? That's sort of the response that we as people sort of. Um, so my default mode is to fight for better or for worse. you know, flight flight wasn't really an option. I've got 4 children. My personal stakes are high. We're not independently wealthy. I think we did okay. We had a little bit of runway where we could take a risk. And then there's certainly no surrender in me. So so really that fear to for me translated into this sort of fight mentality, and it's a mentality that I've always had. Listen, my parents showed up to Canada with 2 suitcases. We had nothing growing up. Everything I've got, I've earned. Nothing's been given. Nothing's been easy. We probably made things more difficult on myself because of my personality to a certain extent. But it's helped me sleep at night, and that mentality is sort of how I approach everything in life, it's this desire to succeed, to challenge myself. It's not for everyone. Everyone's response isn't going to be the same. I'm certainly not judgmental, and like I said, I mean, if I could have, I would have loved to have done this 20 years sooner. But everyone's personal conditions and situation, it's an important factor, and it ultimately ends up being a very personal decision. But for me, the fear was real. Having the support of my wife was incredible.
Yeah, I was going to come on to that, because
Yeah,
you mentioned you got 4 children, and I think anybody going into something like that, and certainly stepping away from probably the comfort zone, dare I say it, probably needs the support of those closest around them, particularly if you've got 4 children. You're a glutton for punishment. You must have a lot of work on your plate. 4 children and a new business, but it's a team effort, that, isn't it?
100%, 100%. My wife, we've been together for about 20 years. Um, she's my biggest fan. She's an incredibly supportive woman. I wouldn't be able to. I wouldn't have had the personal, professional success I've had to the point where I made the decision to take this leap without her help. My children are amazing. We're a tight knit family. Um, and yeah, I think without her support, it certainly wouldn't have been possible. Um, and it ended up, to your point, being a family sort of team decision. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I want to touch on the funding side of things and seeking investment, because I know probably this time last year there was, not telling anybody that can't find this themselves, that you released a number of LinkedIn announcements about the investment that you've received, and I think that's quite inspiring, because having spoken to you a number of times before anyway, I know how hard you worked for that. It didn't kind of fall into your lap. Can you just give people a bit of an insight into kind of the journey that you went on there? Because I think it can be quite inspiring that people can go and potentially get that if you go after it.
Yeah, no, definitely. And you're right. We've been talking off camera, off these podcasts for the last little while. I never appreciated in how many ways you can be told no. It was pretty impressive, and asking people for money is, particularly, with the political uncertainty, the economic uncertainty, it wasn't easy. And, particularly when there wasn't anything there other than me and the team and what we had built. So like I said, I mean, it was an exercise in resiliency. It was an exercise in sort of, having thick skin, because like I said, I mean, I was very politely told no in so many different creative ways. It was incredible. And in some cases, I was not told no or yes, and it was beautifully ambiguous and open-ended and confounding, which was, again, incredible. It's an art to be able to basically not give an answer to a very simple question. But again, it turned into an exercise in persistence. It turned into a refusal. Again, we talk about the mentality. It became a refusal to accept defeat. It became, it was an exercise in conviction, in resiliency and persistence. And we were fortunate enough, and it's crazy that the way we got funded, and again, it was a convergence of many different factors. Is I grabbed a beer with Scott Cousins, who I had mentioned earlier, who I'd worked with at AWS, who I had worked for at AWS. Told him what I was doing. He said, "Hey, I'm interested. I've got a friend, Ryan Shea, experienced real estate professional in Los Angeles, childhood friend. He might know someone who's potentially interested in investing." Met Ryan. We met Current Equity, who's made up of Kane Anderson, real estate renewable development professionals, high net worth individuals. They formed Current Equity. They were our initial investor with a commitment to help us fund the first few properties. We went through diligence, met them, great group of human beings, first and foremost, which was critical because, you pour your heart and soul into this. You want to be surrounded by good people, people you trust, people you want to sort of go to battle with. So they were amazing. And right around the time that was happening, we had also gotten some term sheets from some VCs. Of the 7,500 no's, I'm exaggerating a little bit, that we had gotten, we actually started getting 2 or 3 VC term sheets. And we ended up picking Serena, not the tennis player, but Serena VC, Parisian, French, couple $1 billion of investment fund raised. Really interesting group. Floriane Bertrand. Floriane was amazing. She was a huge advocate, huge proponent of me personally. I'm pretty sure that she pushed to sort of get us an audience with Bertrand. Bertrand got it. He's an accomplished entrepreneur. He loved what we were doing. He loved the concept. He saw it first. And it ended up being a great partnership because I had ambitions, maybe delusions of grandeur, of expanding into Europe as well. And they accorded us that opportunity. So it was really much more than financial. It was really sort of a strategic, long-term view of ultimately expanding into Europe. And it ended up paying dividends. Again, the Current Equity investors, PJ and JC, phenomenal people, incredibly well connected. We're about to close on our first property in Miami. Our first. I'm so excited to be able to officially announce it. I'm not sure when this podcast is going to get published. Maybe this will out us before we can officially announce it, but I'm confident that we're there. So I can make that claim. And then through Serena's relationships, we've been able and I can't disclose this, but we've been able to negotiate and secure a €100 million land bank investment with a publicly traded PERI, which I'm incredibly excited to announce. And again, great people, a great ambitious group who shares in our vision. So there have been some tremendous successes based on these personal relationships that we've been fortunate to develop. So yeah.
Yeah, no, it sounds really exciting, and sounds like I've got a couple of scoops there as well, which is really exciting. So, so congratulations on all of that you mentioned there. I think I think there's a real good message though. I think you probably could have walked away from the whole effort to secure funding kind of practice long before you got the yes though. So I guess anyone out there that believes in their project or believes in their vision as much as you did to keep on pushing, there's potential out there, because it's not always coming from people that you have direct contact or direct relationships with. You knocked a lot of doors that people you didn't know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm a huge, again, I've got 4 children. My wife could probably argue that she's got 5, but I think I'm sure you can relate. I'm sure most men can relate, frankly. I tell my kids, if there's one thing that I want you to learn from me and that I want to impart you with, it is. It sounds incredibly cheesy and it's stupid, but just the relentless, dogged refusal to accept anything, whatever that condition is. And we have it as children. I'm going to get philosophical and quick 30-second tangent. I have twin boys. They're 6 years old now. One of them broke his leg when he was 3 or 4 on Christmas Day. We were in Canada, Canadian medical system. My wife had to wait 24 hours for him to get seen. They finally put a cast on him. He got home. He dragged himself around our home, leg in cast, hip to heal, essentially. Zero self-pity. Couldn't care less. He was happy as all. And he didn't like wallow in self-pity, nothing. It was just, hey, it happened. Let's go play. And that we lose that as adults. We get down on ourselves, and again we find reasons to quit and give up and complain about how difficult, and listen, everyone's situation is different. I'm not trying to be preachy, but I mean, this to me was again an exercise in resilience and futility and conviction. Yeah, that's all this was.
Yeah.
So I think it, yeah. I mean, if it can inspire anyone, and listen, I'm not saying don't bet the house, be smart about this, but know your limits, trust in yourself, and refuse to give in. Because if you know what you're talking about, if you and adjust as well, right? I mean, you from the 70 no's that I got, there was good feedback. The no was for a reason. In some cases, the no is just because there's no aligned interest. But in some cases, the no is legitimate. So with every no we got, we adjusted the pitch a little bit. The pitch got a little bit better. We got a little more confident. We wasted less time. We could tell who was genuinely interested versus who wasn't. So it's incremental, but that you have to be able to spot, that incremental improvement is minuscule, but over a long enough period of time, it's material. So yeah, and that's it.
No, it's a really good story, Ernest. I do think people will take genuine kind of tips and inspiration from that. But funding secured, what does life as a CEO of a startup look like? Imagine you're doing a bit of everything, right?
Yeah, which I love. And we've got a solid team, and it's certainly not a one-man show. I certainly don't want to make it seem that way. We've got an incredible world-class management team. I've been very deliberate and intentional about how we bring people on and who we bring on, because I'm cognizant of the cash burn rate and our runway, and I want to try to protect it as much as I can. But again, the world class team, good people. But it's been incredibly challenging. We're all working 12 hours a day. And without necessarily knowing where we're going. Success isn't guaranteed. I mean, frankly, the only thing that's guaranteed is failure. But I think what we're all doing is trying to stave off failure for as long as we can. And that's sort of been the mentality, which I love, because it's sort of you sort of eat what you kill. You got to go on and hunt, and as opposed to being a and you're right. It was very comfortable. It had gotten very safe. It had gotten, maybe I'd gotten a little complacent. And I think that's probably the case for quite a few people that are in large organizations. And again, nothing wrong with it. Spent 25 years of my professional career in on that track, but I love where we are. It's been incredibly challenging, incredibly diverse, rewarding. Difficult at times. There are times where, full transparency, I'll go back to my wife and I'll say, hey, honey, why am I doing this? Why am I slaving for a fraction of the salary we made? Wouldn't it be easier to go back to one of the big tech companies or one of the other companies out there who value the experience, collect a nice, fat, comfortable paycheck, work for half as long, half as hard? And she's like, because you'll be miserable. And I go, yeah, you're right. You're right. So that's kind of why we do it.
And how much have you learned in the last kind of 12, 15 months or so, like since launching? How much is that? How has that process been good for your own personal and professional development, I guess?
It's been phenomenal. I've learned the business from so many different perspectives, and continue to learn it. The growth, sort of the learning curve and the growth curve is endless. And I'm far from being an expert in any particular area of the business, but I think what I've loved is that I can generally keep up and sort of stand my ground with everyone to a certain extent on every topic, and it's been incredibly formative. I've loved it. I've understood the business from an investment perspective. What are investors looking for? How are they thinking about their investments? Which was, eye-opening. I never truly appreciated. From a technical perspective, Paul coming on the team has been phenomenal, and we work with some incredible subs as well, and sort of third parties that I've been fortunate to work with in past, sort of lives. So no, it's been incredible. I've loved every step. Every day is new. I never know that. It doesn't matter what my calendar says. Doesn't matter what I think I'm going to work on. Every day has been completely different, completely new. And then the other thing I've kind of equated this is, it's sort of like a penetration test. If anyone does like information security, they'll be familiar with the pen test, where you sort of prod your way to try to get through, right? So it's very similar to video game, right? Again, anyone that plays video games, you kind of spend an hour, you finally defeat the boss, only to spend another 2 hours to get to the next boss, and and so that's kind of what every day has been like. For every accomplishment, you sort of clear that mountaintop, only to realize that there's like 1,700 more to go after. Yeah, so it's been incredible. It's been an incredibly rewarding journey. It's been, like I said, every day is new. Every day has been a growth, and personally, for me, there's been a growth day and a learning day, with no end in sight. So I can't ask for anything more. I suffer from I don't think I do, but I'm sure, I'm not diagnosed with ADD, but I need that. I crave that challenge and the variety. So for me personally, I mean, this has been, like I said, I mean, the most rewarding professional experience in my career, and every day is better. As difficult and as frustrating as it sometimes gets, but yeah, it's been incredible.
It's strange, isn't it? I speak to a lot of people that maybe started their own business in this industry, but other industries too, just friends and family and whatnot. But they've similar messages really, in the sense of you tend to earn a little bit less than what you really came away from. You work longer hours, so that kind of doesn't make sense. You might see less of the family and do the things you love doing outside of it, but it's that fulfillment factor that just keeps. I mean, I know that you guys are very much getting started, and there's no sense that you've made it or anything, but it's the fulfillment of the journey, isn't it, that just makes it just cool and fun.
I couldn't agree more. And and then the other thing that's true, and certainly was in my case, um, the people that say, "Hey, I leave work at work and it doesn't spill into my personal life," and kudos, amazing. I don't know how you do it. I couldn't do it. Um, and not to name names or companies, but I was frustrated, and that spilled over um, into my relationships at home with my wife and my children, and it frankly took a toll on them as well. And to your point, I'm working for a fraction of, not a little less, a lot less than I made. But there's the promise of a big payout, which is great, but it's never been the motivation. To me, sort of my salary has always been an output, uncontrollable in large part. What I can control is my inputs, what I give, and I'll let everything else sort of take care of itself. And it usually has. It's usually worked that way. But again, to your point, this is incredibly rewarding, fulfilling. I find myself coming home energized, happier. My kids, my wife see that, and yeah, like I said, I mean, that in and of itself is priceless.
Yeah.
The salary and everything else, will come eventually. And if it doesn't, I'm sure, there'll be other jobs out there for all of us. And I think this experience will only have made us more interesting on the marketplace. But, I'm not even pondering that. My obsession right now is to build a successful business. And, I'm convicted that in doing so, everything else will take care of itself.
Yeah, yeah, no, couldn't agree more. The always interested as well, especially going into a kind of founder CEO role. It can be quite lonely at the top, I hear. So have you kind of surrounded? You don't have to name names. Have you surrounded yourself with, I don't know, mentors, or have you got a good support network professionally out there that you can lean on people to help with the journey? And I know you've got a great team around you as well at Metrobloks itself, but.
Yeah, it's a great question, and you're right. It certainly is. The sort the buck stops with you. There's no the ultimate accountability is mine, and I take that responsibility seriously. I take it the privilege. I take that privilege seriously in terms of the investors who have put their money into our business. That's a huge responsibility, and one that I'm proud of sort of shepherding, and same for the team members that have joined me. A lot of them were in the same situation that I was in. There's a belief, a conviction in me and in what we're doing, and the trust. I take that seriously. We've had some very difficult conversations. I don't have sort of the professional mentorship that maybe I'd like to have. I've been fortunate enough that I'm pretty transparent. I'm pretty open. I hate keeping things inside. And like I said, I mean, it's not always appreciated because sometimes the delivery isn't great and the message sucks, but I think, the people that know me and the people that have gotten to know me realize that it comes from a good place, a place of positive intent. And so I've been able to surround myself with some confidence and been able to talk things out and talk things through. And but yeah, no, it personally, again, there's a lot of responsibility on my shoulders. But I cherish it, and that frankly, I enjoy it and I take it seriously.
It's a good way of looking at it. The pressure or responsibility is a privilege. I think it's a great way of looking at it for sure.
Yeah. Just a quick, 10-second thing. It's something. So I went through, basic officer training, and I'd met some pretty impressive soldiers, officers, and one of them had said that to me, that the privilege of leading these men, was what sort of got him motivated, and that kind of resonated with me because it truly is a privilege. And you're at the center of it, and yeah, and I cherish it, and I appreciate it, and I take it seriously, and yeah.
No, amazing. Ernest, I've got one last question about Metrobloks. I know you've given us a bit of an insight into a couple of things you've got going on at the moment, or several things you've got going on. What does year 2 look like? What does the rest of 25 look like for you guys?
Yeah, we've got 3 sites under contract in the US. Miami, a couple of other markets. Miami will hopefully close on it over the next few weeks. We went to a syndicate of sort of accredited land investors, of which Current Equity, PJJC, and Bob, put up a significant amount of money themselves. Delivered on their commitment to us, which was, incredible. And then we were able to collectively raise the balance of that. So we're going to close on Miami, which I'm incredibly excited, because now we're talking about a real tangible asset, land, and an urban metro market that'll appreciate over time. So that's only going to boost the company's value. So it's a huge milestone in our growth and in our journey. The second thing I kind of alluded to it as well is we've been working with this publicly traded PERI in Europe for the last 6-7 months, and again, great guys, great people, great partnership. We're about to create this European entity and come up with this shareholders agreement. I'm excited about that. It's a 100 million euro land bank fund, which is huge, European focused. And recently, over the last few weeks, we've gotten some institutional investment interest in the US. I was in New York a couple of weeks ago. We've had some really productive meetings with a few potential investors. So there's a lot of support. So, again, maybe I'm the face of this organization, which is sad to say, because I'm sure we could do with a much prettier face. But I think there's so many people behind this, and that's the other thing. Maybe as good a place as any to kind of leave. There is so much goodwill. If you put yourself out there, if you ask for help, you're going to get some assholes that are going to tell you to buzz off, but you get those everywhere. But what surprised me was just how many people believed in me and the team and what we were building and offered to help in a small way, in a big way. It doesn't matter. But that positive momentum is uplifting, and it was incredible. And so where I'm going with this is, I think the next 12-18 months, future's bright. I think we're going to be, a rocket ship, and the propellant, the fuel is just this tremendous goodwill out there of people wanting to be a part of it in small, big ways. And in their belief and conviction. And like I said, it's uplifting. So there's a lot of good stuff coming. I'm excited. We're going to continue to hire as well, which we should talk about offline. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of positive stuff happening, and I'm really excited about the system. I'm really excited about the future and the journey. Hopefully we'll be able to break ground on our first property in 25, which would be incredible. And then sky's the limit. The first one's going to be the most difficult, and I'm hopeful that after that, proof of concept in hand, happy investors, will continue to experience growth and continue to get after it.
Ernest, that's a great way to wrap up the episode. I just want to say thank you for your participation, your authenticity, how open you've been on your journey up to Metrobloks and how you kind of got that moving. I really hope it gives people some kind of inspiration and insight into, you can go make it happen. And I'll be rooting for you guys from the sidelines 100%. And look forward to hearing the great news out there. So thank you. And yeah, thanks, Ernest. Thanks for your participation.
Thank you, Del. Appreciate it, my friend.
Cheers.